This is Mike Borders, and you're listening to Misery Point Radio.
Welcome back to Misery Point Radio. As always, super stoked to have you back once again as a follower on the fringes through this wasteland of internet radio. So last time around, if you remember, of course you remember, I got a chance to sit down with Rick Ross at the Massacre show in Orlando. And I got the story on the reformation of Massacre, how it came to be, how he reunited with original vocalist Cam Lee, and of course, original bass player Michael Borders after 30 plus years. There were some really cool history lessons in that conversation, and I hope you were paying attention. Because in addition to that conversation with Rick, I also got to sit down with Michael Borders himself. And once again, we were able to get a really cool behind-the-scenes look at metal days gone by from the perspective of someone who has lurked mostly in the shadows of metal for over 3 decades, only to resurface seemingly out of nowhere to bring a true old-school perspective to the reemergence of a legendary band into the modern age. And I made it a point to ask Mike some of the same things I asked Rick, because I wanted to try to get a true perspective on some of the information that's been put out to the world over the years. And I was really stoked to hear that Michael Borders and Rick Ross view that old history very similarly. The stories match almost perfectly, which immediately led me to the conclusion that their versions of the stories, at least the ones I asked about, are in fact the true ones. Not that there was really ever any doubt, but it was cool to hear firsthand just how close things match up. And the stroll down memory lane with Mr. Borders was brutally honest, very candid, and very eye-opening. So if you're ready for another episode of Death Metal History, as well as a completely unrelated conversation with Mike's ties to the Pacific Northwest, home of yours truly, then you're in for a mind-blowing experience. So sit back and soak in this rare conversation with one of the industry's most reclusive figures, at least until now. Well, so first off, I guess, welcome back. I don't know if back is a good word to use, but...
I took 30 years off.
You did, yeah. So I know that there's a lot of people that have been wondering, what have you been doing for those last 30 years, and we'll definitely get into that. But at the risk of being kind of repetitive and talking about old stuff, if you don't mind, I would like to get the first-hand perspective kind of on the history of Massacre, how you got involved, and I know that that's been put out there, but I'd like to hear from you personally.
I mean, the history of Massacre, it's actually me and Alan West, who was the guitarist for Obituary, and Greg Gall were playing together. The first version of Massacre, which was kind of a hair metal thing, broke up, and we were playing together, and that's where the first songs were written, the stuff that you heard on that first demo.
Mm-hmm.
And we just decided one day this ain't working. Me and Greg weren't getting along. He's a nice guy. We get along now. But it just wasn't clicking. And we got back together with Bill and started playing.
Yeah.
And we just started weeding out the things that needed to be weeded out with that lineup to make it what it became.
Right. So no more high-pitched hair metal screaming.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than a guy who thinks he can sing.
I've read those old interviews.
Oh, my God.
The candor is just in your face. And I'm just curious, anybody had any contact with him over the years?
I see him about once a year. I mean, I'm not going to name names, but sadly he's in and out of jail a lot.
Sure.
He had problems. He was dealing things. He was stealing things. And he just never got over the whole. He just never got into, like, I have to grow up. And he thought he was Don Dokken, to put it mildly.
Okay.
He really did. He was that guy that was taking operatic singing lessons at 18, but wanted to sing in a metal band.
Thought he was Jeff Tate. And...
Yeah, exactly. He had LSD, lead singer disease.
Yeah, there you go. That's awesome. So you, this is back in the, early to mid 80s, 85-ish. Yeah.
85.
Cool.
God, I'm old.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, I'm right there with you. So although your beard's a little grayer than mine, but
I've had gray hair since I was 19.
So prior to Massacre, obviously you guys were all kids at this point, right? I mean, you were talking about teenagers kind of into early 20s. So, who were your influences? I mean, what got you wanting to even play, say, death metal? If death metal was even defined at that point,
death metal was not even defined. I mean, obviously you were listening to Black Sabbath, Motorhead was a big thing. Celtic Frost had just come out. And realistically, at the time, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest were like, that's the heaviest thing I've ever heard.
Right.
And we started like, all right, there wasn't like a ceiling to death metal in our minds. We thought, well, maybe this could be as big as something like Iron Maiden one day. Nobody knew because it hadn't been done. And we found out real quick the limitations of that. But we just kept wanting to be, okay, Tampa was a very glam hair metal environment. I mean, you'd see these guys walking around town dressed like that. Hair teased the moon. And we're like,
tight leather pants and stuff.
Spandex. Lots of leopard skin spandex.
For the record, you've seen the early Slayer.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. That was the thing.
That was the thing. I mean,
and Tom Araya had that going on.
I've heard Cam do that.
Yeah.
In joke, but it has happened.
But he can do it.
He can do it. He can pull it off.
I'm going to put him on the spot.
You should do that. I heard him do it the other day. But we kept saying we don't want to be like that, and we kept getting heavier. And let's tune down a little bit. Let's make it a little darker. Let's do this. And the guys in the band at the time, I mean, to quote them, like, "Oh man, this will scare the girls away." Really, that's the response we were getting. That was
the goal, was to not scare the girls away.
No, it wasn't the goal, but we had guys in the band at the time that was their big fear.
Right.
And Alan wasn't working out. He had issues at the time. And Cam had just moved over to Brandon where we were practicing. And we were like, hey, we heard Cam from Death lives here in town. And we went over and picked him up. Me and Bill, the drummer. And Alan didn't show up for practice. He just couldn't keep a schedule going. So me and Bill and Cam started playing. And it just kind of worked.
Yeah.
And we had another guitarist at the time, J.P. Chartier, hell of a nice guy. And he was one of the ones that just, it's weird, he was scared by what we were doing when we brought Cam on, but then he went and played on the Executioner demos.
Right, which became Obituary for those that don't know.
Exactly, but he grew up with all those guys. They were all buds. Sure. And at the time, it was funny because at the same time, Trevor Perez from Executioner auditioned to play with us.
Right.
Super nice guy. He was still like 16 years old at the time. It's like, all right, you're a little too young.
Still in high school and couldn't travel, probably couldn't make a lot of...
Traveling wasn't an issue for any of us.
Yeah.
We're going on tour of Tampa this year.
Going on tour in the backyard.
Oh, exactly. I mean, we never played parties like other bands did, but there weren't a lot of places to play.
Right.
There really wasn't.
And probably not a lot at that point that were ready for, what became of the scene. People, death metal... it was in its infancy, in the formative years.
When our first demo came out, it was really funny because, it's not like you could pull it up. You didn't have a smartphone. You couldn't pull it up and say, dude, listen to our new demo tape.
Yeah.
And you're walking around with this cassette tape in your pocket, walking up to your friends, dude, check it out.
Yeah.
I got a demo tape.
And Walkmans weren't even really a thing.
There were no
then.
Walkmans.
Yeah.
So you would find that one.
I just dated both of us, by the way. So yeah, no Walkman. You're welcome.
Man.
You old motherfucker.
You would find that one guy in the parking lot who had a cassette player in his car.
Yeah.
And you would run out, dude, put this on, turn it up. And half the time.
All the way up.
Half the time, they're like, what the hell is this shit? And they'd take it out. So the reaction was less than welcoming when we first started playing.
Yeah.
Our first shows were just a lot of people standing there with this look on their face. They didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah. So by the time that what you had put together ultimately became Massacre, right? So when did you guys decide that direction that you were going to go was going to be full-on, straight aggressive vocals?
The second Cam showed up in the garage.
Yeah.
And Cam showed up, it was freezing cold. It was either you're sweating profusely in the garage or you're freezing your ass off. And we're like, all right, well, let's play Black Magic by Slayer. Everybody knows that. And we'll play Piranha by Exodus.
Right.
And boom. And me and Bill just, put it mildly, we giggled.
Yeah.
We're like, wait, we can kick out that little homo that's been doing this high-pitched squeals? Oh, yeah, we're going to do that.
How did he take that, by the way? Not that I want to sidetrack the story, but...
He would leave threatening phone calls on my voice, my answering machine.
Did he anger stalk you?
He never stalked me, but we kicked him and Alan West out of the band within 2 weeks of our first show, playing with Rick and Cam. And if you watch, there's a videotape of that show. We videotaped everything. Videotape, once again, we're aging ourselves.
Yeah. Is that Betamax?
It wasn't a Betamax, but it was it was my father's 2-piece VHS system where you had the piece in the camera and the piece in the suitcase.
Right.
And you could see Alan and Mark spitting on Rick.
Right.
and throwing things at us. And
Yeah, Rick had told me the story about how Alan physically spit on him.
absolutely.
I mean, how is that even a thing? How does that even happen? I mean, is that just bitter. Petty bullshit?
It's exactly what it was. I mean, it was, okay, Alan was an original member of the band.
Right.
At one time, it was him and Billy Andrews and 3 other guys.
Right.
They just kind of, those guys had stopped playing by the time they're 17, 18 years old.
They were original of the band, but the band was not yet Massacre.
No, it was a cover band playing Anthrax, Omen,
some Venom stuff.
Not even Venom, no. I mean, we'd suggest something heavy like that, and Mark would be like, "Oh, I can't do that; it'll ruin my voice." And I would laugh, and you sissy.
Yeah. So he just got super butthurt over the whole thing, and
it's a way to put it. I don't think, I would run into some of these guys later, and there's a little bit of a grudge there.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, I'm not comparing anything like that. Who was that first drummer for the Beatles that got kicked out? I'm sure he still holds a grudge.
Sure.
I mean, you're going to, okay, there was a guy named Jerome, I can't remember, Jerome Grable. He was he was the bass player for Obituary when they were still Executioner. And they kicked him out and replaced him with Danny Tucker. Danny's going to be here in a while.
Right.
He's playing for Nocturnus now. And
Nocturnus AD.
Yeah, whatever.
Gotta call it AD, right?
That's so gay.
I should put a little TM above that, by the way.
The whole trademark. It's such a... If you had told me in 1985 that 50-year-old men would be arguing over the name of a band in high school...
Cough, cough, Massacre X.
It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
And I would have told you were on crack. I really would. It's just bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, no, this was always about... I mean... Okay, there might have been a time like, man, we might make a career out of this. That ended real quick. We're like, this is about fun.
Okay. So you and Rick are very much on the same page.
Yes,
in that sense. This is just about the brotherhood and the fun. And
exactly. When he called me a few months ago, out of the blue, I haven't talked to Rick in 30 years.
Yeah, I was actually. Let's go ahead and jump into that then. So, you were retired more or less.
I was okay. I've been playing with a band. I lived in Miami for a while, and I was playing in a band in South Florida.
Okay.
It was a weird mix of things. I mean, Brett Hoffman sang for us for a while. Bobby Gustafson was actually there in and out. It was me, a guy named George the Chorus, who was the drummer for a band called Druid, which is really popular in South Florida. Except, imagine Metallica
Brett Hoffman.
with Brett Hoffman.
Yeah, crazy.
I know. Imagine Metallica, except every song is about Star Wars, and the band was started by Geordie White, who became Twiggy Ramirez,
right?
And all that was intertwined with each other, and we played together down there for like 5 or 6 years, and it was just a really weird mix of thrashy experimental shit.
Sure.
And the guitarist we were playing with sadly passed away, and
bummer.
At 50 years old. No, wait, 45 years. 45 we passed away.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
And so you were doing that for a while, just for shits and giggles.
And my wife woke up one day and goes, I want to go to school to be a dentist. I was like, okay, whatever. So we put that to bed and moved to Gainesville so she'd go to school for 10 years.
Nice.
And now I call her Dr. Kelly, and man, it turns me on when I see it.
That's so amazing. So she's fully supportive, though, what you're doing.
Yes, she is.
Yeah.
I mean, at first she was a little... but then I was like, she has never seen me play before. We've been married 30 years next week.
Yeah.
And
happy almost anniversary.
Thank you. And she's going to come to this show, and I'm going to say, you really think I'd cheat on some of the girls you're seeing here? And it's good. She's like, I'm fine. She's going to be totally cool with it after tonight.
We are solid.
We are solid.
So that first call, Rick calls you up kind of out of the blue. You guys had more or less kind of been social media here and there, but not really. Yeah.
Not really.
So, I mean, from your end of it, you get this call. Did you even think it was really him? I mean, were you?
I recognized his voice instantly.
Yeah.
I was fine. I was like, okay. I mean, I have a very stressful career with what I do, and I was like, yeah, it sounds like fun. I could use some fun right now.
Yeah.
And I jumped on it.
So
I look at my wife, honey, we get the band back together. And she's like, which one? I was like, Massacre. She's like, what?
Who?
Then I call my father up. He goes, how old are you?
You're going to play this
You're going to do what?
Cookie Monster music again?
My father went to all our shows when I was younger.
Yeah.
He was a trip. He'd have like some young girl in the corner, like, I'm with the band, sweetie, hug me.
Right. So, I know I'm bouncing around on you a little bit, but I meant to ask you.
It's called stochastic question.
Yeah, well, there you go. It's flashbacks. It's like a movie. It's a movie technique. So you get a call, but before that, we were talking about kind of the band and people exiting. I mean, how did your exit from Massacre happen the first time? What was the deal with that?
I got a call. I mean, okay, we had taken a couple months off because Bill had mono. He was sick. He was sick. I mean, we had just played a couple shows, and he was struggling back there. You could really tell he was in bad shape.
Health-wise, you mean?
And right, I mean, he couldn't keep up. He was really run down, and was like, look, we just need to take a break. And I get this call, and we'd start practicing again, and I just get this call. Everybody wants you out of the band. I was like, huh? I was like, okay, I don't care. It's all good.
So out of the blue, though.
Out of the blue. Nothing had happened up to that point.
Relationships with everybody was good, solid. I mean as far as kids can be. And
we were 19, 20-year-old guys,
right.
Full of testosterone. I know what I'm doing. We all had a vision of how we should do things. And
right.
Heads butted, but it wasn't ugly.
Right.
And next thing you know, I went over there and my stuff was all kind of messed up, and he wouldn't even come out of his bedroom while I loaded my stuff up in my car.
He being
Bill.
Bill?
Yeah, okay. That's where we practiced. We were practicing at his house, and I went over. His mom greeted me at the door, very polite older lady, and she apologized. And I was like, well, Bill here? Yeah, he's in his bedroom. And he wouldn't even come out, never spoke to me again.
Was it Bill that delivered the news to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So called you up and said, come get your shit?
Yeah, that's exactly
so
what
he
happened.
broke up with you and said, your shit's on
me. He gave me, as he put it, the iron boots. That was his phrase.
The iron boots.
The iron boot. And next thing I heard, Terry Butler had taken my place. And he'd never played before.
Yeah.
But they were friends. I mean, I get it. That's his best friend. I get it, you know.
Sure. And they had a long relationship. And
exactly. They'd been buddies since they were little kids. So I understand. I know. You know, here I look back and for a couple months, I'm like, oh, you son of a bitch. And then I'm like, well, if I was still doing that, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. Which is, you know, I've met a lot of guys that I used to hang out with back then. I'm like, holy shit, these guys are broke. I'm like, how are you ever going to retire? Do you have any retirement plan? I know that sounds old, but
how's the health insurance in the death metal industry?
It doesn't exist. I mean, do you have any money in saving? No. So I'm like, well, if I'd still been doing that, I probably would have had a lot of fun, but I wouldn't be in the situation I am now.
Hey, kids, you just got your public service announcement from one of the OG death metal founders in the industry.
Save money. Marry well. Marry a tall, smart girl.
So
don't call her your sponsor when she's listening.
So after that,
and say the words "yes, baby" to whatever she wants.
After that, though, did you take some time off after that?
2 years later, I was married. 3 years later, I was living in South Florida playing with another band.
So
it wasn't long.
Yeah, it wasn't a long.
I mean, but it never was like
one of those.
No, we recorded a bunch of stuff, but never played any shows. I mean, it was just a very weird thing that we were doing.
Yeah. And so for the last, say, 30 or so years, you've been kind of playing casually, but hadn't really been doing much in the way of... Was that kind of an intentional thing, or was that just how life took you in a different direction? Yeah, work. And what exactly did you say?
I'm a building contractor. I design and build custom homes for spoiled millennials.
Oh, fucking! Well, you said spoiled and millennial in the same sentence,
I know,
but you know that's a double redundancy, sir.
I totally
understand. At the risk of getting political on the show.
It's okay. No, I am very political, so it's okay.
Yeah. So, flash forward again. So you get the call. Hey, what are you doing? Come jam. How do you feel about that? Are you excited about it? Or are you hesitant about it? Apprehensive?
You know, it takes a lot to get it. My wife, like, as an example, all the last couple of days, you get excited. I don't get excited.
Yeah.
It's just not. I'm numb.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes a lot to piss me off. Like, unless you kick my dog or something, you really can't piss me off.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of like, whatever. The stoic thing, it's that whole Kentucky inbreeding thing I got going on.
So you are, in fact, the Kentucky hillbilly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
my family is from eastern Kentucky, Appalachia.
Yeah. Well, my wife's got family up in the Ozarks.
I know. She was telling me. I mean, it's...
Yeah. Nothing is more amazing than standing up on a non-cloud cover 95 to 100 degree day in the Ozarks in a family cemetery. Hating life.
Oh, come
and
on.
Thinking,
you got to pay respect to your ancestors.
I could literally die right here, and it would just be poetic justice. I would just sink into the ground.
I get it. I mean, I have the family cemetery. We have a family chapel that was built in like the early 1820s, and you go up there and there's a preacher holding like 5 or 6 snakes in each hand, speaking in tongues.
Oh man,
I'm like, dude, you should be my opening act.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just throw some backing tracks behind that, and
he speaks in tongues. It scares the hell out of me.
So, with all of the various incarnations and reformations and different versions of the deaths, the massacres, the mantises, did it never enticed you to kind of reach back out and say, hey, maybe I want to get back involved in this again?
God's honest truth, I never even listened to From Beyond until about 4 months ago.
No shit.
I had never heard it.
Yeah.
I still had the old demo tapes of those songs. If I wanted to hear it, that's what I listened to.
Well, Rick's been very vocal about the fact that you weren't given the credit that he feels like you were due. Yeah.
It's credit for what? Yeah. Yes, there is a notoriety, but it's not like credit for something that was ultra successful or anything like that. So
they didn't hide the millions from you.
No, exactly.
But I don't know. I think it's kind of, I think if anything, just the acknowledgement that something that you were a part of, and you had a part in the songs, and you had a part in the history. And
once again, I always had that. Just 4 kids right out of high school playing in the garage. I really didn't think of it as something that special.
Sure.
Until about 4 months ago, all these trashy girls on Instagram started sending me pictures of themselves in their T-shirts with Massacre on them.
Massacre shirts?
Holy shit, I'm old enough to be your dad, but this is really hot.
Right.
Have you ever seen a grown man naked? Send me more pictures.
So when you heard then, when you first sat down, you checked it out for the first time, start to finish, what'd you think?
It was way overproduced.
Yeah.
You
thought From Beyond was overproduced.
I thought From Beyond was I listened to it.
We're not talking about Back From Beyond. We're talking about From Beyond.
I really thought From Beyond was an overproduced album.
Okay.
It was I listened to the first demo tape didn't even have Rick on it. Even though his name is on the tape, he did not play on it. He had just joined the band.
By the time it came out, he was in there, and so they just slapped.
He was part of the band when we recorded it.
Yeah.
But he just wasn't. He'd only been there for like 2 weeks. So, I really thought it was overproduced. We were a little raw and more powerful than that early on, and I could hear where that didn't sound like what we used to play. I could hear that some guy with a button behind the mixing board was like, "Let's tweak that. Let's compress the shit out of that."
Yeah.
I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I really didn't like it.
Which is weird because when people talk about what they like about that album, the perception is that it's a very raw album to the general public. Of course, the perception is always different when you're not involved in the process, but me being somebody who listens to, say, From Beyond, and then hearing down the road 2011 Back From Beyond, night and day production quality, right? Yeah. But when you go from what an album sounds like when you put it on a fucking boombox in your garage, and that boombox is sitting outside your garage door because you can't close the door with that boombox and it blows your speakers out, you can't hear anything. From Beyond is considered to be a pretty raw album. So it's strange that your perception is that it's an overproduced album.
The first thing when I heard those keyboards, I was like, that is so gay. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Well, those were bass lines originally, right?
Yes, they were. I was like, what asshole put a keyboard on this album? That's really my first response. I was like,
who answered that question?
Rick did. He's like, Terry couldn't play those parts. That's what he told me.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. I'm not going to say anything.
Sure.
But I was like, but keyboards? Really? And y'all didn't fight that?
Well, it's funny. Perceptions, and I guess at that time, the keyboard thing was just starting to kind of take in, like that whole ambient sound, trying to put in the horror movie kind of vibe, that cathedral-y.
I know. It's just, but that's,
and you say that with disdain.
It was pretentious. It was pretentious sounding. We were never a pretentious band. Like me and Rick, we made a conscious effort when we started talking. I was like, okay, realistically, I haven't listened to death metal in years. It was just, And what I've heard in the last 7 or 8 years is like, it's not heavy to me anymore. I listen to bands like I Hate God, the Melvins, stuff like that.
Sure.
I was like, okay, it's something I can sink my
The
teeth
Melvins
into.
from my neck of the woods.
I love the Melvins.
Yeah,
I love the Melvins.
With The Accused and Forced Entry and all those guys. Awesome.
But I was like, look, well, first, is the interpretation of like an athlete watching film of his competitions. I did that for a few days, and I'd see these guys come out on stage, back turned to the audience, putting on this preening and this posing. I was like, that is so wrong. And who do these guys think they are?
Right.
I look at them like, all right, these are 4 guys that were probably in a garage a few years ago, just like we were. And now they're acting, oh, look how evil I am. Like, it's fake. It's all bullshit.
Right.
That's what I appreciate about bands like EHG and the Melvins. I mean, it's a bunch of guys getting up there going, all right, we're going to play this song. Check it out.
Yeah. So when Rick called you up and is like, hey, let's try this again, was there a condition where you're like, I'll do it if
it's fun.
If it's fun.
That's the first words that came out of my mouth. Is it going to be fun?
Yeah.
It's like if we get in there and it's, some of the bickering that did go on, little things here and there, that wasn't fun. It really sucked the life out of it.
But it hasn't been like that.
No, not at all. But if we get in there and we just play these songs, have a good time, let's do it.
Yeah. And how was that first rehearsal then? Did it feel like home with you, or was there?
It did. I mean, we played like 3 or 4 songs the first day. I mean, it was rough, but I mean, it was still solid. I mean,
and how familiar were you with the material at that point, or did they just say, "Here's the fucking album, just practice to it"? And
I listened to the album for about a week.
Yeah,
and they're okay. These the same. The only song I'd never played was "Defeat."
Yeah, some of it was already familiar to you.
Yeah, I remember all these songs,
but you hadn't played it. Was it like a bike though? Getting back on, hopping in, kind of muscle memory, kick back in, and.
Exactly. That's pretty much all it was.
Yeah.
We just had to really learn one song that I'd never heard, and parts of those parts we had played before.
Yeah, and I mean, you were familiar with Cam, you were familiar with Rick, but you had to kind of get used to Maz and his playing style.
And I play a little differently because he does some different things, but it's not that big a deal.
Yeah. So
he still keeps it solid.
Yeah. So the chemistry is good.
Yes.
Yeah. And so now 6 rehearsals in.
I know.
Which is striking because, we heard about this now public-wise, me, Joe Q, listener, right? A couple of months back, hey, this was going to be a surprise show, but then all of a sudden now this is a thing and you guys get ready to go on tour. How do you feel about it? I mean, is this something you guys you're all in, you're ready for it? And
I think Rick and Cam have something to prove. I'm actually looking forward to the break I'm going to get from work.
Yeah.
I work 7 days a week right now. I mean,
you got somebody taking care of your shit though, right? Or are you just going to not have any clients for a while?
I'm cutting back for the year.
Yeah.
And I met a couple the other day that wants to talk about building a house. I'm like, look, let me tell you point blank, I'm going to disappear for 3 days out of every month. We're going on tour and playing death metal. And they just kind of look at me, and all of a sudden they get that, oh, he's an artist too. It actually works well. It's really funny.
That's hilarious. So you're going to go to Germany?
Going to Germany next Thursday.
Yeah, and then you're going to go to South America.
We go to Germany, then we go to Texas to play the Destroying Texas Fest, and then we play California Death Fest.
Some Fuck the Commerce Festival.
That's next week.
Yeah.
That's the German show. That's the German show. Then we're going to Puerto Rico. We're going to Chicago. We're going to South America.
What are you looking forward to the most?
The fun part of it. I mean, realistically, just traveling a little. Honestly, taking a break, having fun with old friends. Yeah. That was something I always thought was weird. I remember when we were practicing together when we were kids, I literally would sit there, oh man, one day we're going to be like 50, 60-year-old guys going, let's get together and jam in the garage. And then we didn't speak for 30 years. I thought we were at least friends, but it's like that door slammed shut. All right, these guys are never speaking again. And I'm like, all right, this is kind of cool. It's fun. I hate to say like football team reunion for your high school buddies, but that's kind of what it is.
Sure. Yeah, but everything seems tight. I mean, everything seems like...
So far, I mean, it's not perfect.
Sure.
But
the excitement level seems
if it's too perfect, it doesn't sound heavy anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be a little
For you,
loose.
It's about the heaviness. For you, it's about...
I want it to sound like, a bomb's going off.
Yeah. Yeah, a bomb's about to go off. So what do you think we should expect out of tonight's show?
Sarcasm.
From whom?
All of us.
Yeah?
All of us.
Yeah.
We're all, Maz especially. Maz especially is you're not. If I'm back here cutting jokes, I'm sorry. There's nothing you can do about it. I mean, we're going out there to have a good time.
Yeah.
We're not going to be that we're serious death metal. Oh my God, we're death metal God. No, that's bullshit.
Yeah. So when you see a lot of these bands out there today, you know, makeup on their face
Fake.
and the corpse paint.
I want to look at it and think, who? I just look. I'm like, who do you think you are? Do you think that's really helping the cause?
Yeah.
No. I just can't get into it at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're wearing a Black Sabbath shirt, so you're about, you know, keeping it real and.
Well, there's more to this. It's the Black Sabbath matter shirt.
Right.
It's a little political statement here going on.
But yeah, it's things are definitely. I see the trend reverting back.
I hope
to
so.
You know, kind of. I've been using this phrase a lot, but what's old is new, and what's new is old. In 2019, I think. You got a lot of bands coming back, you know.
Bunch of 50-year-old guys going,
yeah,
honey, we're getting the band back.
Yeah, with solid entries though. I mean,
well, here's the thing. Yeah, I was watching part of the Maryland Death Fest from last night. It was on, or it's already on YouTube.
Right.
And you see these bands, blast beats, triggers everywhere, 6,000 beats a minute, and the audience is kind of standing there.
Right.
What's this? I don't know what to do. They're like kind of antsy, like they can't get into it.
Right.
And then like Church of Misery, who's a fantastic band, gets on there and they play this slow, heavy Sabbath riff, and the place goes completely nuts.
Yeah.
And it's that riff is missing in so much of these new bands.
Sure. Have you had a chance to check out Druid Lord?
What's that?
Have you had a chance to check out Druid Lord?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Sadly, most of the day I listen to Hispanic music.
By
the guys on my job.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
The guys on my job. It's really funny because you walk around like, that's an Abbott song. Except that you'll hear like these songs that they steal from the 70s and it's in Spanish. And
yeah, I think the groove, not that I hate
I don't want to use the word
I hate
groove.
the word groove,
Don't
but
use the word groove.
There is something like an identifiable phrasing that I think you have to have. Is that an apt name, an identifiable phrasing? You know, you have to feel the song, I think, to be able to get into it. You have to know what's coming up next. And if all it is straight up blast beats and unidentifiable chords, it is, I get what you're saying. It's hard to know where to take that to the next level.
The phrase me and Rick were talking about is like, okay, when you were a kid in high school, me is a long time ago, you'd sit there in your homeroom class, humming some song in your head.
Right.
That Black Sabbath riff, something. And if you can't do that, it's not what we're wanting to do. I mean, yeah, some of what we do is a little heavy, a little fast here and there, but we want people to be able to sit there, hum it one day.
Right.
I mean, like, you know, the whole Beavis and Butthead riff thing. You know? Exactly. Da, 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 da. And that's missing in these new bands.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, the musicianship's insane. These guys are fantastic. You're like, holy shit. But write a song I can remember tomorrow.
So what happens if one day you're at the mall and you're taking
like
the
I would
elevator?
ever be seen at a mall.
Oh, come on. I know you're a mall rat.
No,
and I can take one look at you and I see mall rat.
Everything that is wrong with America can be found at the mall.
One day you're at the mall and you're in the elevator and a Massacre song comes on. Have you arrived?
I would.
Because, you know, you could hum those elevator songs.
Oh, I know. I would probably laugh about it.
When you get the Muzak version.
The Muzak version of it. That would be well, honestly, that's how okay. True story here. Once again, we just spent the day in the studio. Me, Rick, and Cam, and Alan. We had that first demo tape out, the Aggressive Tyrant demo. We're walking around the Strawberry Festival in Plant City, Florida. It's like the county fair. Looking for anybody who we could tell we made a demo.
Right.
We're looking around. We see a carny. You got the Himalaya going. I look, I got $5 in my pocket. Watch this. I go, dude, give you $5 if you put this tape on. So we're standing there. It's Midnight Madness. It's car state fair. All of a sudden you hear Cam screaming at the top of his lungs through the PA speakers on the Himalaya at the festival.
Yeah.
Lasted about a minute. That was like a highlight for us right there. That was as close to the mall stories we'll ever get.
That's pretty surreal. That's funny.
We would do whatever it took to make people listen.
Yeah.
Remember, there was no internet. There was no, I talked to these. Okay.
You weren't file sharing. You were tape trading.
I talked to these young guys that have bands, and I'm like, well, what are you doing to promote your show? We're doing a lot on Facebook. Like, well, you do flyers? They look at me like, what? Our first show, we printed up a couple thousand flyers. I went to my dad's office and burned up his copy machine. And here's me and Cam, and the parking lot of the Chuck E. Cheese in Tampa, Florida, where everybody drove their cars back and forth on Friday night, literally shoving flyers in your car as you drove by. You're taking one, fucker. Here you go. And you're taking a flyer. You're going to know the show is happening. And that's what we did.
Right.
And my little brothers were still in high school. Here's some flyers. Hand these out.
Yeah.
And you just went nuts with it. You had to.
Yeah, I had the cops come to my house one day because I was putting flyers in people's mailboxes for a
big
show I was
deal.
playing, and I didn't know you weren't allowed to open up a mailbox.
Ooh, federal law.
You could put it in the newspaper bin, couldn't put it in the mailbox. Well, I was fucking mailbox stuffing, and so I had a nice visit from the Popo, and they weren't entirely thrilled, but I mean I was 16, so you know.
Exactly. It scares the hell out of
Yeah, what are you gonna say? So why is this long-haired kid wearing black in the middle of July,
in Seattle.
opening up my mailbox? Yeah.
Making acid bombs back then, probably. Remember acid bombs in the mailbox?
Absolutely. So, and speaking of Seattle, I wanted to ask you about this. What exactly is your tie to the Northwest? You'd mentioned that you kind of go hiking up in the Olinat Forest, but you're a Kentucky hillbilly. And how do you get from there to here? What's the tie?
Honestly, you spend enough summers in Florida where the humidity's 100%, you can't breathe, and you're like, all right, I'm going to go to the opposite side of the country and take a break. People like my family in like Ohio, I want to move to Florida. It's so pretty down there. Like, that's insane.
Yeah.
And people in Florida are like, I want to get to a cool spot, and that's where we're going.
My wife and I do really like it here, though. It's very nice.
It's not that bad yet.
Yeah, not yet.
Give about 3 more weeks, and it becomes oppressively humid.
Yeah.
That's the phrase the weatherman uses, and you're just drenched all the time. It's like you're spending 10% of your gross domestic income on jock itch medicine. You're sweating so much.
That's awesome.
It's horrible, but I mean, yeah.
And so you literally ran to the other side of the country just to get away from...
Well, that, and I was like, well, we can go here, and there's nobody there.
Yeah.
And
you have friends or family up that way or anything?
I had a nephew who played for the Seahawks.
Oh, okay.
And he was playing at the time. Him and my niece went up there, and they were living out in Bellevue for a while.
Okay.
And I was like, all right, let's go see him. We'll go see a Seahawks game, blah, blah, blah. And I just like, oh, man, this feels great. I haven't sweated in 3 days. And we'd go hiking around Mount Rainier, and then we'd go hiking around the Olympic National Forest. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's peaceful. I like peaceful.
You
Peaceful
an
is a good
outdoorsy
thing.
kind of guy then?
Absolutely.
Get out
I'm not a hunter. I don't fish. I really don't do any of that shit. I just want to go walking in the woods.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I will.
And there's always Bigfoot sightings when I'm there, though. It's weird.
Lots of Sasquatch, lots of Bigfoot, lots of UFOs.
I think it's me they're seeing.
Yeah. Oh,
I get these
you
size,
are the Bigfoot
I get
sighting.
these size 14 boots. I mean, they're like, oh my God, there's a Bigfoot.
I'm gonna put on your Chewbacca outfit and you probably get shot.
Well, last time I was there, we were on the Hurricane Ridge, and some old guy got gored to death by a mountain goat about a half hour behind us. I was like, well, why didn't that goat come fuck with me? That'd be a great story to tell.
Right.
I'm like, I've got the goat.
Death by a mountain goat.
Yeah, he was it's a sad story, I'm
Can't
sure.
say I've heard of that, but
Right
there's
there
a
at
lot of
Hurricane
other
Ridge.
wild critters, and which is a fantastic motorcycle riding spot because I've been up there. My wife and those went on a ride up there last year, and I'm kind of a little bit out in a place called Port Orchard across the water from Seattle. So, but yeah, it's about 2 hours to get up to the Olinat, and it's just amazing, and you can spend endless time up there.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's weird because you feel like you're way the hell out there, but you're not that far. I mean, you can get in anywhere you want. I mean, if you get attacked by a mountain goat,
I
you're
ain't
probably
scared.
screwed. But
I'm not scared. I
you're
can
not
handle
scared.
it. I can handle it. Like, bring it on, goat.
Awesome.
I normally have bear spray, fire. Oh, my wife's here. I normally have bear spray. I normally have a couple firearms with us, so it's okay.
Yeah, awesome. So, well, cool. I think next time you're up in the area, we'll go hiking. We'll throw some people off the cliffs.
There's a couple places I'd like to do. You get that panorama point right there on Mount Rainier where you're hugging the side of the mountain. And you're like, wow, look at that. And
yeah, it sounds amazing.
So you've been there before.
Yeah.
Been
all over up there.
The wife would move in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Yeah, the Pacific Northwest is it's not for everybody. It's got its probably like here, it's got its pluses and minuses, and weather is not for everybody. It's kind of foggy, kind of misty. It rains about half the year, but yeah.
There's some days the sun hurts.
Yeah. Yeah, we had our first big snowstorm, I think, in about 20 years where we had about 2 feet
I
of
saw
snow.
where it snowed there.
Yeah,
And people couldn't drive in it.
Yeah, everybody lost their shit, and you know, and then the people in Montana were like, "You guys are all a bunch of pussies."
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it was amazing. So it was pretty metal to watch everybody cower in the snow and try to drive their Priuses.
That's the one thing I couldn't handle is Prius drive. I'm sure I'm convinced there's like a conspiracy.
Yeah.
If you drive a Prius, you pull in front of trucks like mine and just slow down. I really think I just feel that some days.
Yeah, I'm a big truck guy myself, so I saw you pull in. I was like, all right, this is cool. I have a rental car. I was hoping they weren't going to give us a Prius, and they didn't, thank God. But wouldn't that have been ironic? The Seattle guy gets a Prius for a rental car in Florida. So
I will tell you, though, I hate parking in Seattle.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there, like, you're like at a 45-degree incline on the side of the road, and you're like, this ain't going to work, man. If you're not used to that.
Right. Well, now everybody has heard the real story behind what happens behind the scenes at Massacre. So is there anything else that you want to throw out there before we call this a day and let you get back to your gig tonight?
Just come check us out. I mean, it's not going to be your typical cheesy death metal thing. It's going to be more. It's going to be a little more fun than what people are used to.
Right.
We're not taking ourselves that seriously. I mean, we're up there to have fun, still be heavy, of course. But,
right.
You know, the pretentious crap that you see, that's gone. Cool. It's gone. We're avoiding that at all costs.
3 words to describe the current Massacre sound.
I can't say it because my wife's sitting right here. She'd get mad at me for going. How about heavy as balls?
Heavy as balls.
Yes,
and we all know how heavy balls are.
Mine have their own gravitational pull. They have their own gravitational pull.
I've heard.
I mean,
awesome. So, Michael Borders, thank you so much for hanging out on Misery Point Radio today. I appreciate your time.
Not a problem.
Looking
Appreciate
forward
time,
to seeing Massacre tonight with Druid Lord, False Prophet.
It's going to be a while.
It's going to be a while, so have your sparkling Perrier and
I got some tea in the truck.
Go wait out in your Prius, and we'll call you when it's showtime.
All right, thank you,
brother.
Thank
Appreciate it. Well, there you have it. Another awesome conversation from another metal legend. You're welcome. And for the record, the show was, just as Mr. Borders described, heavy as fucking balls. The entire experience, out of control, super awesome, one that I won't soon forget, even with what's left of my limited memory. So, if you like the show, do me the favor. Subscribe. iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcast, Spreaker, Stitcher, anywhere podcasts are found. Like the Facebook page, share the Facebook page. Don't forget to follow the show also on Instagram at Misery Point Radio and Twitter at Misery Point Radio.
over.